Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'du. Inshallah ta'ala, before we start, last week we stopped at the end of the opening section for the book of Salat, Kitab al-Salat. And we discussed the issue that I want to make sure is clear before we move on. Because I spoke to a couple of brothers after class, and it might have came off, and I didn't intend it that way, so I'm going to make sure we are clear. The issue of a person having an excuse for not knowing certain things Islamically. And the example that I used was a Muslim that's been Muslim for a year, for example. Right? And the issue is, who is excused from not knowing things Islamically? And I said the person in Philadelphia who's been Muslim for a year. Right? This is the example that I made. The person that lives in Philadelphia that's been Muslim for a year, do they have an excuse? And the way the question is presented, it sounds as if they don't, based on what we were talking about. But that's not how I intended it, but that's how it came off. So I want to clarify that the issue of a person being excused, meaning a person is not sinning for not knowing. It's not on them because they don't know. It's not based on 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. There's no time on everybody has to know all of this in this amount of time. If they don't, they're sinful. Okay? When it comes to the excuse of the excuse of a person is excused based on what I just didn't know. That's a case-by-case situation. There's no time limit on each and every person. It's case by case. So if a person says they didn't know that the Salat was obligatory, you can't say to them, for example, well, you've been Muslim for a year. You should know that already. It depends. You have to look at each situation of each individual person and go from there. Everybody clear? There is no time where you've been Muslim this long, you're supposed to know that? No. And then you turn around and say the person's not Muslim anymore. That's number one. That issue that we spoke about last week is not restricted to time. And the time that I used was for an example, just to be clear. That issue is a case-by-case situation. It's not, you just paint everybody with one brush. You from Philly, you should know that. You don't know that, or you're not Muslim no more. Nah, that's not the case. Number two, because there's some people here that weren't here in the previous section of this book. This book is a specific type of book and is written in a specific type of way. It's an introductory book. It's on, as we say, the entry level. Therefore, it's written a specific way, meaning it's written without ayat and hadith in it intentionally. It doesn't mean that there is no proof for what the author is saying, but the author didn't mention it in this book intentionally, because this book is for the beginner. For example, if a new shahada comes in right now, or if somebody takes shahada right now, right, or right before Isha, and they need to pray, they can't pray without what? We're going to teach them to do what first? Wudu. All right, when you take them to make wudu, whether it's a brother or a sister doing it, when you take them back to make wudu, what are you going to do? Somebody explain to me what you're going to do when you go back there. It's a question, I'm not. What you going to do? Take them back there, what you going to do?
Show them.
You're going to show them. Tell you, what you going to say to them? You're going to show them the steps. Exactly. I want to know specifically, what are you going to say to them, brothers? You're going to tell them what to do. Make your intentions. They're going to say, what's that? Some say, Bismillah. Okay, then what? You're going to show them. Tell you. Are you going to run off all the hadith and Sahih Bukhari about making the intention and how to make wudu? Do you know them? All right, like, let's just say you know it's hadith, you know it's dalil for the intention. Are you going to say what the Prophet ﷺ said in the Minat of Niyat? Every person get what they intended. You're going to say, no, make your intention. You're going to tell a person, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and we go pray. Right? That's the equivalent to these books on this level. On this level, it's not that there is no ayat, there is no hadith for dalil. It's not mentioned here intentionally. طيب? The next level books go into mentioning the hadith, mentioning the ayat connected to the stuff like that. Clear? So when we go through these issues, they're more or less issues for tasawwur. In order to understand the issue first before we start arguing. We're not here to argue with the author. We're not here to argue with the author. This is the author. Sometimes we might hear stuff that might go against what we know to be popular. I didn't know you could do that. It doesn't mean the way you're doing it is wrong, but this is another way to do it. And they have the lil to do it like this. Okay? Everything is not what we already have locked in our brains. I mean, if it's not done the way that I know, then it's incorrect. And it doesn't mean that if you hear something that's different, that what you're doing already is incorrect. Clear? Why do they write these books like this? The ulama, the scholars of Islam write these books like this. If a person prayed according to this, their salat will be okay. The salat will be valid. Does that mean they can't pray any other way? It doesn't mean that. Okay? It doesn't mean that this is the only way you have to pray. If you don't pray exactly like this, then your salat is invalid. It doesn't mean that. So, it's important, the last thing before we start, is that everything is not contained in every book. You can't learn everything in one sitting. So you can't learn, we're not going to learn everything about the Salat tonight. So it's steps, it's chapters, it's broken down, as we say, a curriculum intentionally for be able to digest it. Okay? And this is one of the simplest books with Imam Ahmed and method of Imam Ahmed connected to the method of Imam Ahmed. It's short, to the point, clear. No arguing back and forth. This is not the time and the place for that. طيب. So we start, the author, rahimahullah, says, فصل الأذان والإقامة فرض كفاية على الرجال الأحرار المقيمين للخمس المؤدات والجمعة. So this chapter is the chapter of the Athan and the Iqaamah. The Athan and the Iqaamah. Can anybody explain what the Athan is? Yes. The Athan. What's the Athan? Anybody?
Call to prayer.
The call to prayer. Honestly, y'all. I'm honestly, brothers, honestly. The call to prayer. Does everybody understand what that means? Raise your hand if you don't know what he's talking about. The call to prayer, what does that mean? Everybody clear what the call to prayer is? Huh?
Coming to pray, right?
Huh?
Coming to pray, right?
Come to pray. طيب. The call to prayer. That's good because that's how it's usually translated. And we got to start understanding what's the difference between the meaning of something and the translation of something. Okay? Because a word is translated, it doesn't mean that's the meaning of it Islamically. Just like, for example, we say wajib. Wajib means what? Obligatory in English. That's a translation. It means obligatory. It means mandatory, right? But Islamically, wajib has a definition. Wajib has a definition Islamically. And it doesn't just mean obligatory. It has stuff connected to it. So we got to start paying attention to the meaning of something and the translation of something. All right, the call to prayer. طيب. If the Athan is the call to prayer, then what is the Iqaamah? Huh? Oh, to assemble, to line up. Is it a difference then? Huh? Jade. Mumtaz, exactly. The Athan is the announcement that the Salat time has come. It's time. The time has entered. You can pray now. You don't have to pray right now, but now you can pray Dhuhr. From this point on, you can start praying Dhuhr. Right? The time of Dhuhr has entered. The time of Asr is in. That's why we say, is it in yet? All right? Is Asr in? Meaning, did the Adhan go off? Is Maghrib in? Once the Adhan is called, or the time for the Adhan, that means you can pray that Salah. Clear? The Adhan doesn't mean line up. The Adhan doesn't mean come right now. It's translated as call to prayer, right? But it doesn't mean you necessarily have to come right now. It doesn't mean it's obligatory, you got to come now, right? It means that the time is open. Now we can start praying Dhuhr. So now we can start praying the sunnahs, the recommended prayers before Dhuhr. We can start praying them now, because Dhuhr might come in like Dhuhr comes in now 11:47, but we don't pray the Iqaamah is not until 12:15. Clear? So the Adhan is one thing, that is the time for the Salah, number one, and it's 15, as they call it, sentences. They say 15 words. The Iqaamah is, and we're going to get to the difference. The Iqaamah is that it's time to pray now. Stand to pray now. Clear? The difference between the Adhan and the Iqaamah. طيب. Now the Hukum. What's the ruling on the Adhan and the Iqaamah? Do we have to call it? Is it recommended to call it? Or is it up in the air? You can call it or you don't have to call it. Huh? Is it up in the air? Wajib, طيب.
I've heard different things on that. I mean, if you establish a congregation, it's wajib. But if you're on your own, you know what's in.
طيب. Yellow. شيء. خلاص. طيب. The adhan is fard kifaya. Farda, the adhan in the Iqaamah. Farda kifaya. Meaning, if we could say, it's a communal obligation. It's obligatory on the Muslims in the area. Not every single Muslim has to call the adhan when it's time for the adhan. You with me? It's not like all the Muslims, it's time for Dhuhr, everybody got to stop, turn and start calling the adhan themselves. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Right? But somebody from the Muslims in the area has to call the adhan, and if they don't, all of the Muslims in the area get the sin. Farda kifaya. Clear? Alright? Not you, all the people got to call it then, no. But somebody got to call it. Just like the Salat al-Janazah, right? Somebody got to pray over the brother or the sister. If not, all the Muslims in the area get the sin. Somebody has to wash them. If not, all the Muslims in the area get the sin. Right? The adhan and the Iqaamah is the same. They're the same. Somebody in the area has to call it. If not, all of the Muslims in the area get the sin. Who calls the adhan? Now you specify who calls the adhan. Who is it, or who is it obligatory? If a group of people line up, right? Who has to call the adhan? It says number one, al-rijal al-ahrar al-muqimin. The description is, and they write it like this intentionally, y'all. On the men. The adhan is obligatory on the men. The Iqaamah is obligatory on the men, which means it's not obligatory on who? The women. So if a woman stands up in her house to pray and she doesn't call the adhan or the Iqaamah, it's no problem. Clear? Everybody clear? If she doesn't call the adhan or the Iqaamah, it's no problem. It's not on her. طيب. Also, obligatory for the resident. Who is the resident? Who's the resident? The person that owns the house. I want to see what you understand by resident. Cool. The person that owns the house. La, that's not the answer, y'all. That's what he said. The resident is who?
Non-traveler.
The person who's not traveling is considered a resident of that city. That's your hometown. You're not a traveler, you're a resident. Which means if it's obligatory, if it's farda kifaya on a resident, that means it's not obligatory on who? The traveler. That means if you're traveling, if you're going to New York for the day, and it's time for Asr, it's time for, you don't have to call the event. Clear?
So if I'm in a different city, I won't have to say it?
Right, you don't have to. Now, if you go to a masjid in another city and they're called, that's one thing. We're talking about you out on the road, you're traveling, you pull over to pray. It's you, 8 brothers with you, a couple brothers.
If you in your own city,
Right. If you're in your own city, gotta call the event. Somebody gotta call the event. Right? طيب. He says next, للخمس. للخمس. How many salats in a day? How many salats in a day, y'all? 5. It's not trick questions. I'm not trying to trick you. طيب. Those 5 prayers, he describes it here as al-mu'addat. Al-mu'addat. It's possible that those 5 prayers could fall into one of 3 categories, right? And we all know this, but we got to make sure that we're paying attention to it now. Either A, you prayed the salat on time, okay? That's possible, you prayed the salat on time. It's also possible that you prayed the salat when? Late, meaning not on time. It's time for the next prayer, but you still got to pray the one before. Clear? Maybe a person was what? Sleep. Let's use sleep. You're in the house, sleep, you wake up late, the Dhuhr went out and it's time for Asr. Right? So it's possible you pray Dhuhr when Dhuhr comes in on time. It's possible you pray Dhuhr during the time of Asr. You was late, you was asleep, you woke up, and it's time for the next prayer. Right? Then it's possible you pray Dhuhr on time, the correct with everybody on time, but you got to pray it over for some reason. Clear? All of these are possibilities. Everybody with me? So, mathalan, I pray Dhuhr with the Jama'ah, then I find out, you know what, I'm for sure, after I ain't even had wudu, I forgot to make wudu. I got to pray over. I prayed Dhuhr on time with the people, Jama'ah in the masjid. Right? The sister prayed with the Jama'ah, with the Imam in the masjid. But she slammed out, she remembered that, I forgot to make wudu. So that means she has to stand up and pray again. Is it still time for Dhuhr? It's still time for Dhuhr. So she still is praying Dhuhr on time, but she has to re-pray. That's one situation. Or the situation could be a person woke up late and it's outside of the time. If it's outside of the time, that means, what do we call that in English? If I wake up late and it's time for Asr and I didn't pray Dhuhr, what do we say? Huh? I gotta what? Dhuhr. Make up. I gotta make up my Dhuhr. Right? I gotta make up something. Like we say, I gotta make up my days for fasting. So either we gotta pray it over in the same time. We might have to make it up because it's late. Or we pray it in its time the way it's supposed to be with no problem. Clear? When we pray it like that, in its time, when it's supposed to be with no problems, I got wudu, I faced the qibla, I did everything I was supposed to do. For the brothers, this is when the adhan has to be called for these prayers. For the 5 prayers that are prayed when they're supposed to be prayed. Meaning, if you woke up late and you missed the salat, you don't have to call the adhan. Clear? If you woke up late, you missed the salat, you missed Dhuhr, and it's time for Asr, that means you don't have to call the adhan. Everybody with me? I slept through Dhuhr, I planned to get up, but I woke up late. Now I missed that whole prayer and the next prayer is in. Do I have to call the adhan for the last prayer? No, I don't have to call the adhan for the last prayer. Clear? Clear? طيب. Also for al-Jumu'ah. Obligatory for Jumu'ah, Salat al-Jumu'ah. The adhan is obligatory for Jumu'ah. So the first thing he mentions is on the men, which means brothers. It's for the brothers and the boys in the back. Boys, males. The adhan, no sister. We can't be, sometimes we gotta, break the shyness. It ain't for our women to come up here and call the adhan. They're not doing it. It's not on them. It's on the men. We don't want nobody to hear our voice. I don't really know it. We need to learn it. If I don't know it, we need to learn it. It's 15 words that we already know. We say all the time, with exception to a few. Right? Sisters not coming up here to call the adhan. It's not on them to call the adhan. It's on the men. Everybody with me? So we got to break out of, that shyness. You got it out. Call the adhan. You got it. Everybody want to pass the buck, right? But guess what? If nobody called it, who get the sin? Everybody. And on top of that, the benefit and the reward for the mu'adhin, for the one that calls the adhan. Anybody know that hadith? The neck is going to be long, Yawm al-Qiyamah. The neck of the mu'adhin, the one that calls the adhan, is going to be long, Yawm al-Qiyamah. And the ulama explained in some different explanations that they'll be recognized, that those people with the long necks, those were the people calling the adhan in the dunya. And it's a couple different interpretations showing the benefit of the mu'adhin, of the person who calls the adhan, which is a reward. If we, brothers, this is a reward that is, for us. It's for the men, it's not for the women. They don't have to do it. It's not on them. طيب. Now he says, the description of the adhan, وَلَا يَصِحُّ إِلَّا مُرَتَّبًا مُتَوَالِيًا مَنْوِيًّا من ذكر مميز عدل ولو ظاهرا. طيب. Who and how is the adhan to be called? And this is important, that if it's on the men, that means who else is it going to be on? The boys. Eventually the boys are going to have to crow, and if Allah spares us or gives us age and we can't, we're not mobile like that. We can't lead the Salat. Who's going to be leading the Salat? Our boys. Because we got to be, just like we diligent with them making it to the league and all that. No benefit they make it to the league and they ain't praying. They get that big contract and what they do with it. What's the benefit going to be? They make it to the league, either one, right? And they're not praying, they don't identify, they don't take anything from the deen with them. That we got to keep them balanced now with the basics. So when they go out on their own, at least we could say before Allah, Yawm al-Qiyamah, at least I gave them the tools that I had to give them. I didn't have all the tools, so I sent them somewhere to get the tools. Right? If it's not on us, if we can't do it, then it's on the males. The males, all this is for the men. Which means, sisters, if you have children, if you have boys, right? It doesn't mean that a woman can't learn the adhan. It doesn't mean that a sister can't teach her son the adhan. Right? If she needs to teach her son the adhan, she needs to be able to teach him the adhan also. If she's not able to do it, her or us, the men, we need to put them in a situation where they're able to learn it. Because at the end of the day, it's fard kifaya on the rijal, on the men. طيب, the adhan is not correct. لا يصح. It's not valid. It's not a valid adhan. It's not a valid adhan except that if it is murattaban, if it's done in order. If it's done in order, the adhan, 15 words. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya al-salah, hayya al-salah, hayya al-falah, hayya al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. 15 words that really we already know. It has to be done in that order. Meaning, if it's not done in that order, then what? It's not correct. It's not. What does not valid mean? It's rejected. If it's rejected, then it doesn't what? It doesn't qualify. It doesn't count. If it's done out of order, it doesn't count. It's invalid. Clear? That's the first condition for the adhan. The second one, mutawaliyan. It's continuous, that a person doesn't say Allahu Akbar, then they phone ring, or they get a text message, and they stop. Make a phone call, right? Then they come back and pick up. That's not what they come back and pick up where they left off. That it has to be continuous, from beginning to the end. It's one form of worship that is to be done together. Clear? No breaks. Then run up, go off, hold on. You know what? You run, go to the bathroom real quick, come back, then pick up where you left off in the middle. That has to be done in continuation. Number 3, manwiyan. That a person has to have the intention to call the adhan for the salah. The person has the intention to call the adhan for the salah. Why? Because it's worship. And every form of worship needs a niyyah, an intention. So let's say, for example, or you tell me, when would a person call the adhan without the intention of it being for the salah? Huh? You're teaching somebody. Jay. So you're teaching somebody the adhan, you're telling them everything to do, you tell them first words, you do all of this, everything you're supposed to do for the adhan, but the intention is not to call the adhan for the salah, the intention is to teach someone the adhan. Okay, so the adhan for the salah has to be with an intention. Tayyib. Number 4, min dhakarin, from a male. Meaning if a woman called the adhan for the salah, la yartamid. We don't depend on that adhan. Why? Because it's not on her. It's obligatory on the men. Tayyib. It's important. The chapters are connected because the next word is connected to the last class. On every male is the adhan. Fardu kifaya. On every male, does he have to be? It specifies what type of male. That male has to be mumayyiz. Mumayyiz, reach the age of discernment, like we spoke about last week, which is, 15, 7, 10, 10, Jade. We got 3 answers now. I'm just saying, we got 3 answers. Sisters, who was here last week, sisters? The age of discernment. 9, 4 answers, Jade. 15, Mumtaz. Somebody already said 15, right? That's 5 answers. Somebody said 15 already? You said 15? 4 answers. Puberty, that's la. Who said the age of puberty is one thing? We're not talking about puberty. We're talking about the age of discernment. 7, Mumayyiz, right? We said the people under puberty break into 2 categories. Remember? That's why review is one of the best ways to keep your knowledge. The people under puberty, the children under puberty, either they from the age 1 to 7, and then 7 to until whenever they reach puberty. At the highest point, we want to say 15, the ulama say. At 15, if they didn't get any other signs, they're baligh, they reach puberty. But they might, a girl, she might get her menses at 13. She reached puberty. A boy might grow hair on the armpits at 12, puberty. But if none of that happens, by 15, that's it. They reach puberty. Tayyib. The mumayyiz, that means they have to be mumayyiz. That means the one who calls the adhan has to be at least how old? 7. In order for that adhan to be valid for the salah. Mumayyiz. Clear? The age of discernment and puberty are not exactly the same. They're 2 different stages for the child. The first stage is only up to the age of 7. Why doesn't it count? This from last week. Why doesn't it count for the children under the age of 7? Huh? Again? What'd you say? G. That's what we said last week was they don't have the ability to form the intention. But what he said, the ability of judging between was correct, also falls under that reason. Their reasoning, the ulama also mentioned that the child under 7 or so, 5, 4, 3, they don't really have the mental capacity yet to judge what's correct, what's incorrect, what's right, what's wrong, what's harmful, what's beneficial. After that, and this is important also, the next condition, we did 5, right? So far, we did 5. Number 6, adlan walau zahiran, that a person has to be considered the brother that calls the adhan has to be considered a trustworthy person. Even if it's just on what's apparent to us. From what we know is that the brother's trustworthy. Question now. What constitutes a person being trustworthy? This is important. You say the brother got to be trustworthy to call the adhan, Sheikh. Like, who's considered trustworthy? What does that mean? Huh?
Not known for lying.
Not known for lying, Jade. Huh? Righteous. Tayyib. Anything else? Bubba. Huh? No stealing? You can't steal. Jade. Muslim. Jade. Now, if we restrict it like that, a lot of us might not qualify. That's why it says, وَلَوْ ظَاهِرًا. Even if it's what's apparent. What's apparent is, and we go through this all the time, brother come to the masjid, he the nicest brother in the dunya. Then his wife called and he's an animal in the house. Right? He's a lion, tyrant. Right? When he comes to the masjid in front of the brothers, mashallah. Right? So, or not even in the house. You go and ask some of his co-workers or people that live next to him, his neighbors. They know a different person. Right? We only judge people on what we know. We are not, I'm not trying to be funny, but we're not the police. We're not going into people, peeking in people's houses, sneaking up on people trying to see what they're doing. That's not what the Muslim, we don't spy on each other. We only know what people present. If the person is on the apparent, on the outside, what we know from the person, not me personally, the Muslims. What the Muslims know from this brother is he's upright. He's a straight up dude, then he can call you then. You don't designate somebody, as they say, the adha, they say, لم يرتكب كبيرة ولم يسر على صغيرة. They say the person who doesn't, who's the just, the trustworthy person, they don't commit the major sins, and they're not a person who's continuously committing minor sins. Now, we don't know what people do behind closed doors, so that's not our business. That's why he says, وَلَوْ ظَاهِرًا, even if it's only what you see from the person. All what we see from the person is good. Anybody could do anything when they go in their house, when they're on their own, that's on them. We're not responsible for that when it comes to the adhan. Only thing we're responsible for, mashallah, is the upright brother, call the adhan. We designated this brother, you're going to be the mu'adhin, because that's what we know from good from him. Clear? Now, if he got something else going on, that's not our business to pry in and figure it out. And if the information comes to us, then that's a situation. That's a situation we got to deal with. Clear? So the upright person, which is, I think the young buck might have got it, the most general, righteous. Somebody's upright. Staying away from the major sins, and not a person who is consistently committing minor sins. So what about the person? Is it zahir? How does it become apparent? What does it look like if it's apparent that a person is openly committing sins? How would we know that? Rumors? We can't go with a rumor because they might be lying. Maybe they don't like the brother or the sister. Huh? How would you see somebody doing it? Where? In the street, social media, work. If a person has no shyness in front of people and they show everybody their sins, we're not to come after that and designate them to come be some righteous person and call it adhan. They're on social media showing the world their disobedience to Allah, then we're going to say, yeah, you want to call it adhan? La. This is an honor. This is a level of honor, right? That the person that calls the adhan, this is a person we have to be able to trust, right? That's why it says, وَلَوْ ظَاهِرًا. What if they never showed anything to anybody? All we know is good. Then we go with what's apparent, what's clear to us. Everybody get the idea? If a person says, I only know him from good, and you turn around, there's videos floating around, they on the internet and crazy. Come on, that's not Allah's style. Tayyib. Tayyib. Also, the adhan is not valid except, it says, وَبَعْدَ الْوَقْتِ لِغَيْرِ فَجْرٍ. That it has to be the time for that salat except for, there's one salat that the adhan is called before the actual time to pray. Not Dhuhr. Fajr. The first one. The first one. Tayyib.
Is that a condition? Or is that something else?
What?
With the adhan has to be called within the time. When it comes to,
Is it a condition?
yeah,
Is what a condition?
it Is that part of the condition of the adhan?
Good question. Is it part of the conditions for the adhan that what? That it has to be time?
Yeah.
Y'all tell me. Is it part of the conditions of the adhan that it has to be the time for the salat? No, that's not what I said. The adhan cannot be called until it's time to pray, or it can be called before it's time to pray for Salat al-Fajr. So meaning, Salat al-Fajr right now, the adhan says here 5:35. A person can call the adhan for Fajr, for example, at 4:30. For Fajr. Not for any other Salat, for Fajr. Clear? Person might call the adhan for Fajr at 3 o'clock. 2 adhans for Fajr. For the rest of the Salat, only 1 adhan. What's the benefit of the 2 adhans for Fajr now? Huh? You want to wake them up? If the adhan is at 5:35, somebody calls the adhan at 3 o'clock. People need 2.5 hours to get ready for the Salat? Huh? Everybody understand? It's 2 adhans for Fajr. 1 adhan can be before the Salat. Before the Salat. And 1 adhan is when it's the time for the actual Salat. That the time for Fajr enters. What's the benefit of calling the adhan before the Salat? Let's say 3 o'clock, 2.5 hours. Huh? Jade. For the people who want to get up out of their sleep and pray tahajjud and pray the night prayer, that adhan wakes them up. And for the people who are already up praying, that lets them know that Fajr is coming. They might want to lay down and get some sleep before Fajr comes in. Clear? That's only for Salat al-Fajr. Alright, all the rest of the other 4 prayers, the Salat, the adhan is called when it's time for the Salat. Clear? طيب. وَسُنَّ كَوْنُهُ صَيِّتًا أَمِينًا عَالِمًا بِالْوَقْتِ. And now these are some descriptions of the adhan, of the mu'adhin, the one who calls the adhan. So it's recommended that the person has a loud voice. That the person has a loud voice. Because the benefit of the adhan is that it's an announcement that it's time to pray. So from the recommended things that the person has a loud voice that is built to travel, the raising of the voice so people can hear it from far away. Also that the person is aminin. The person is aminin, meaning trustworthy person in the sense that here, whoever we, the Muslim brothers, whoever we designate, select, we're going to trust him, right, to let us know when it's time to pray, to fulfill a pillar. Salat is a pillar. It's not an option. This is something we all have to do. So we're going to put this brother, all of us are going to trust this brother to be on time with his calling of the adhan. Right? Aminin. He got to be, because we're going to trust him with the time. And the ulama say the person who openly sins and doesn't get no shyness in their sins, can he really be trusted by the Muslims to give importance to the salat and things like that? So they say aminin, because he's going to be trusted with the time. And they're going to be trusted, even in the explanation it says, and they're going to be trusted ala awrat nas. This is important, even though we might not have it now. The importance of the mu'adhin being somebody upright is that during that time, the mu'adhin would, you know, the minarets that we got pictures and all that of, the big tall joints outside the masjid, right? Those minarets, the mu'adhin would go up high on something high so that his voice could travel. But when he went up high like that, it's possible he could see inside people's houses, right? Roofless house, you can see inside the house where the people are not covered, because most people don't climb up on roofs and look over houses except if you are the mu'adhin. So now we're going to trust this brother to be going up where it's possible he could be looking up down in somebody's house. Is that for everybody? That's not for everybody. That brother has to be trustworthy. Clear? طيب. It says lastly, وَعَالِمًا بِالْوَقْتِ. And the person should be knowledgeable of, is recommended, these things are recommended, they should be knowledgeable of the times that the salat comes in. Is it possible that somebody doesn't know what time the salat comes in? It's possible. It's possible that somebody doesn't know. And if we go a step further, not know like this, with the prayer sheets and not know like this, knowing using the sun. It's possible a person doesn't know that, but that doesn't mean they can't be the mu'adhin. Because maybe other people know and they can just tell them, it's time to pray, call the adhan. Clear? One of the Sahaba, he was a mu'adhin and he was blind. One of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, he used to call the adhan and he was blind. So if he was blind, he couldn't see what? He couldn't see the sun. So how did he know it was time to call the adhan? They told him, adhan, it's time for such and such. Okay, but it's better if the person is able to do that on their own. It's better. طيب ومن جمع أو قضى فوائد أذن للأولى وأقام لكل صلاة. If a person combines two prayers, together. When do we combine two prayers together? If we travel. We go to New York, we go to DC, wherever we go, VA, Florida. Huh? Or bad weather. Hopefully we get to that, inshallah. Go to Florida. Right? So at that point, we can pray Dhuhr and Asr together. And we can pray Maghrib and Isha together. We can't combine Fajr with anything. Fajr is always alone. But the second and third prayer we can pray together, and the third and fourth prayer we can pray together. طيب. If we pray two salats together, that means we call the adhan for the first salat only. We don't have to call two adhans. Clear? We call the adhan for the first salat, and we don't have to call it, and then we just call the Iqaamah for the second salat. Clear? So, mathalan, we pray Dhuhr and Asr together. Somebody's going to call the adhan for Dhuhr. He's going to call the Iqaamah. We're going to pray. We're going to stand up. He's going to call the Iqaamah again. Not the adhan again, just the Iqaamah again, and then we'll pray Asr. Clear? He says, and the same thing goes for if you're making up a salah. If you make up a salah and you call the adhan, do you have to call the adhan if you make up a salah? You don't have to. But if a person did, they would only call the adhan for the first prayer, and then they would call the Iqaamah for the prayers after that. طيب. Sunnah, the recommended things for the person, for the mu'adhin, and the person who hears the adhan. He says, وَالسُنَّةُ لِمُؤَذِّنٍ وَسَامِعِهِ مُتَابَعَةُ قَوْلِهِ سِرًّا إِلَّا فِي الْحَيْعَةِ. It's recommended for the person calling the adhan and the one who hears the adhan, is recommended to do what? Repeat whatever the mu'adhin says. So when the mu'adhin says, he stands, he says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Sunnah for the person listening who hears the adhan to do what? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The person here, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The mu'adhin says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. We say, Ashhadu an la ilaha. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. The mu'adhin is saying it loud. We're saying it silently. Sunnah is recommended. That we say exactly what the mu'adhin says, except when he gets to Hayya ala salah. When he gets to Hayya ala salah, we don't say Hayya ala salah. We say what? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi. There's no strength or might except by Allah. Come to the salah. Everybody, if we think about it, the call and the adhan is Hayya ala salah, Hayya, Hayya. Come to the salah. How many Muslims don't pray? How many Muslims don't respond to the salah? It's time to pray. Yo, come on, let's go pray. All right, I'm coming. They call the Iqaamah. All right, I'm coming. Right? So at that point we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It's my strength to even go to the salah. My strength to respond to the call is only from Allah. It's Allah's ni'mah on me that He even gives me the strength and the iman to respond when it's time to pray. طيب. It says, وفي التثويب. It's not common here, Allahu A'lam, but not too many people call two adhans for Fajr. I'm not really sure which Saajid do. If they do, then we know that it is something that is sunnah to do, the call to advance for Fajr. Thought you would leave that. It says, وَالصَّلَاةُ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ بَعْدَ فَرَاغِهِ. After the mu'adhin finishes the adhan, that is sunnah, recommended to send salam on the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala al Muhammad. To send salam on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As-salat ala nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. O Allah, send your prayers on the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is after the adhan is finished. After the adhan is finished. And all of these things are very short, y'all. We have to get out of the mentality of I don't know this or I don't know. If we don't know, we need to learn it. We should want to know it because a lot of these things are very short, 3 or 4 words. 3 or 4 words repeated enough times, it's stuck, inshallah. And then on top of that, we're doing it every day. But it has to be some desire to learn, and it has to be a push. You gotta want it. You have to know the reward for it in order for it to be an incentive, a push for a person to learn it. It says, and send the salat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the mu'adhin finishes the adhan, وَقَوْلُ مَا وَرَضَ وَالدُّعَى, and to say the dua after the adhan. Saying the dua after the adhan is also something that is recommended to do. All of these things are very short, but the reward in them is a huge reward. So we got when the mu'adhin calls the adhan, number 1, to repeat after the mu'adhin. When he finishes, to send salam on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And after that, to make dua. To make dua after the adhan is also finished. Clear? طيب. He says, وَحَرُمَ خُرُوجُ مِن مَسْجِدٍ بَعْدَهُ بِلَا عُذْرٍ أَوْ نِيَّةُ الرُّجُوعِ. And this is the last part of this chapter. He says, and it is haram. What's haram mean? Huh? It's a sin if you do it. It's a sin if you do it, and it's a punishable act. And the person is rewarded for not doing it. Jade. If we just said that haram is impermissible, that's a translation. The translation of haram, impermissible. But what does it mean if something is haram Islamically? What does that mean for my deen? Meaning, if I do it, it's punishable. That's a punishable act by Allah Jalla wa'ala. Number 2 is sinful. Right? So he says, haram, to leave the masjid after the mu'adhin calls the adhan. The mu'adhin calls the adhan, and you say, what? I'm going to holler at you. And leave the masjid. Clear? Everybody with me? Except, or as he says, bila udhr, without a valid excuse for leaving. Without a valid excuse for leaving when? After the adhan. If a person don't know, right? If you know what you're doing, you say, what time? They already called the adhan. I don't even want to put myself in that situation. Let me leave now. Right? The valid excuse, as some of the ulama explain, is that it's possible, what? Yeah, I'm in a masjid, but I'm going, for example, I'm going up top, I'm going to pray up there. Right? You're going to another masjid to pray. Because the adhan is called, for example, here, it doesn't mean you have to pray here. I was on my way to meet somebody, I was going to pray up there, I didn't know it was that close to the time to pray, they call the adhan. I can't leave now, and somebody's waiting in the car for me, no. They say a valid excuse, for example, they're going to pray somewhere else. Or, as they say, they had a meeting already designated already. Well, like we do, realistically, right? Sometimes brothers come, the adhan, for example, is at 2:45, right? Brother got to be to work at 3 o'clock. The adhan is called 2:21. So now, since he or she has to be to work, they want to speed up everybody else. So let's just pray right now. All right? When in reality, they have an excuse to leave. You have a mower, you got somewhere to be, at a certain time you got to be there, that's excusable. But not just to go outside and just do nothing. I'm going to just shoot down at the shoe store real quick, see if I can grab some kicks. And they just call the Athan. So now what you end up doing, missing the Salat with the Jama'ah, to go down the street to sneak a villa, right? Not in that case. In the case where it's a need, person got to go to work, person has an appointment, a doctor's appointment, they call the Athan, but they're not going to pray yet. In those cases, then it wouldn't be a problem. He says, or a person, they call the Athan, and a person can leave out with the intention, I'm coming back. I'm coming back to pray. So, Methalan, for example, there's kids in the building. Sometimes the parents come with the kids, the Adhan is called, and they say, you know what? From what we said in class, once the Adhan is called, you can't leave. Haram, sin, except with the intention to return. So they said, well, I got the kids with me. I want to run across the street and grab something to eat real quick. Right? The Adhan was called, a person leaves, but the intention is to come back and pray with the Jama'ah. Clear? Is that clear, y'all? Tayyib. We'll stop there unless there's any questions. Any questions? Fadl.
Question. Is it possible for the munfarid, of a person who is praying by himself, that is, weather prevented is bad and they're in a position to combine to salat?
For the person praying alone?
For the person praying alone.
We're going to get to that, inshallah ta'ala, in the chapter of combining the prayers. Inshallah. من رام علم جملة ذهب عنه جملة. As Imam Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri rahimahullah said. And this is not for you, it's for all of us. I forgot to mention this narration at the beginning of the class. Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah, he said, whoever tries to get all of the knowledge in one sitting, they're going to lose all of that knowledge in one sitting. You with me? وَإِنَّمَا يُطْلَبُ الْعِلْمَ عَلَى مَرِّ الْأَيَّامِ وَاللَّيَالِ. But knowledge is gained days and nights passing, time over time. We're going to get to that, inshallah, in the chapter of combining the prayers, because there's a lot connected to it.
My question was about, it was actually from last week, we were talking about a Fatiha. Brother wanted me to ask you, because we were saying that, if you don't have a Fatiha, then the Salat's valid. He was saying, how do we bring harmony between the hadith? Prophet ﷺ said the one who recites Arabic and he gets it wrong, the Quran, when he gets it wrong, he's rewarded. Like, does that still apply with you reciting the Fatiha, you get it, it's correct?
Jay, is the person who can't recite al-Fatiha, the Salat not being valid, and the person in the hadith about the person who recites and they have difficulty still getting a reward?
Yeah.
Tayyib. And that's going to come up, this is going to come up again, but we can talk about it real quick. The importance of al-Fatiha. Fatiha is from the arkan, the pillars of the Salat. Meaning if the Fatiha is not recited, the Salat is invalid. But what about the person who recites the al-Fatiha, and this is going to come up in the conditions of a Salat, and they are out, the al-Fatiha that they recite is not correct. They're missing vowels, they're missing letters, their recitation is not what it's supposed to be. Tayyib? Which is a problem, y'all. Al-Fatiha, the correct pronunciation of Al-Fatiha is just as important as the wudu being correct. The wudu is from the conditions of the salah. You can't pray without wudu. The salah is not correct without Al-Fatiha. It's very important. So, you have to look at the person. The situation is this. Even though the wudu is a condition, in the Al-Fatiha is a pillar. And we're going to get to this, y'all. The wudu is a condition, Al-Fatiha is a pillar. They're not exactly the same. Okay, but they are both very important. They both affect the validity and the correctness of the salah. That's what I mean by this as important. They both affect the salah being correct or not. Alright? The person who learns Al-Fatiha, mathalan, and they learn it with mistakes, and this is all he or she knows, and that's how they pray, that's fine for them. Clear? They put their due diligence, they tried to learn it, and this is what they came out with, and that's how they pray, alhamdulillah. What if it's 10 brothers, and everybody's Fatiha is bad? then what? Who leads? The best of them lead the salah. Right? Because his is bad, but his is not as bad as everybody else. His is, and everybody else is either as bad as his or worse. But somebody has to lead the salah. Again, brothers, the sister's not coming up here to lead the salah. So if our recitation of Al-Fatiha is not correct, if we don't give importance to Al-Fatiha, then who gonna lead the salah? You know how we do, we line up. The imam don't come, we line up and everybody be like this. You got it. Nobody wanna lead the salah. Right? Bubba, you got it. Nah. We got it. Tayyib. The person, if all 10 of them, all of their salah, all of their Fatiha is bad, the person who has the best, how would they know? Somebody has to lead the salah, that's fine. But what if it's, for example, it's 10 of them, and one of them, his Al-Fatiha is good. Who's to lead the salah? He's to lead the salah, the one who has the best Al-Fatiha, the best Qira'ah. How would we know that? How would the sisters know that? Sisters all in the masjid, they get ready to pray together. How do we know who has the best Qira'ah or not, the best recitation of Al-Fatiha? It's the mushkila.
As far as the men,
As far as the men or the women.
that's what is a part of the
Huh? You have to ask. Tayyib, what you gonna say? How you John cool? You gotta be all the way real. We in here right now. This is the problem we got. This is part of the problem of not being a community, not being in the community. Nobody knows who's who knows what, who don't know what. So what we do, how do we judge if you think a brother, for real, how you judge if you think a brother really know what he's talking about or not?
What they saying, how they present themselves.
Mumtaz, how they present themselves. You look at a person, they look like they, man, he might know. Fuck that, he got it. He don't know what he doing. Right? It look good. We looking at people, we assume because you look like this, you should know. That's normal. They do that in Mecca. They do that in Saudi too. The Arabs, they used to be telling us to lead the Salat. I'm like, yo, I'm not. All these Arabs here, I'm still learning Arabic. I figure if you know Arabic, your Salat should be better than mine. It's not 100%. That ain't 100% true, but that's my assumption. I assumed if you know Arabic, that yours be tighter. So the person who has the best recitation should be leading. What if he prays, what if the one whose Al-Fatiha is good prays behind the person who Al-Fatiha is not good?
They have to make it up.
Who has to make it
The
up?
person behind the person praying bad.
The person who has the good Al-Fatiha, he has to pray over. Because the person who has Fatiha is bad is fine for his situation or her situation. And it's fine for those praying behind him because they all in the same boat, as we said. All of them in the same boat, they all pray together, somebody got to lead. But what if one sister comes and her Al-Fatiha is better than everybody else, and she prays behind the sister leading, and she like, yo, she killing it. She's like tearing it apart. She's not reciting it correctly. She's going to know, okay, after this I need to pray over. Because the salat may be valid for them, but it's not enough for my situation. And that's going to come up again in the shurut, arkan as-salat, the pillars of the salat, the importance of Al-Fatiha. Tayyib? Any other questions? We're going to start next week, inshallah, shurut sihhat as-salat. The conditions for the salat to be valid. The conditions for the salat to be valid. And again, a lot of these things we do without even thinking about them. But there's going to be some detail connected to them now to make sure we're doing them correctly. Tayyib? طيب we'll stop here inshallah wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam تفضل.
let's say a situation like your child. So the situation is better than yours.
Jade. How old are they?
A lot of
If he's 10, if the child is 10,
37.
then that means we use all the stuff that we went over. Are they mumayyiz? They 7 and up. They got a good recitation. It's better than yours. There's no problem with them leading the salah. We gotta we gotta make tatbit, they call it. We gotta implement what we learn. If we know the child, his recitation good, but he's 5. He just sharp, like he's 5. Anything he hear, he memorizes. He memorizes just as he heard it. But he's 5. That means he hasn't reached the age of discernment. He gotta be at least 7 to lead me in the salah. Right? Even if he was 8 or 10 and his recitation was better than mine. Right? My son is 8, his recitation is better than mine at Al-Fatiha. And he's 8 years old. Is it obligatory on him to pray? Is it obligatory on him to lead me in the salat? You understand? If he leads you in the salat, is the salat valid? Is it correct? Huh? I don't hear everybody looking at me now. What you say?
I said, yeah.
Yes?
It's not obligatory for the child to pray at any age, so I'm not sure. I don't know.
He says no. Tayyib, my son is 8. He recites Al-Fatiha better than me. First question, is it obligatory on him to pray? No. Number 2, if he does lead me in the salat, does the salat count? MashaAllah. It counts for me, so it don't count for him.
It doesn't have to, because it's not obligatory.
Mumtaz. It's not obligatory on him, but if he prays, it counts for him. Naflan, like a voluntary prayer for him. Everybody get the idea? This is the difference between those ages. What if he's 5 and his Al-Fatiha is better than mine? Number 1, is it obligatory on a 5-year-old to pray? No. Number 2, can he lead me in the salat? If he leads me in the salat, is it valid? No. Everybody get the difference? So now, if he's a 9-year-old, his Al-Fatiha is better than mine, and he leads me in the salat, right? Or he doesn't come on time, it's time to pray and he's taking too long, and I go ahead and pray without him, it's fine, because number 1, it's not obligatory on him. Clear? Or her? Tayyib? That's it. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.